Hi guys, so today we're going to make veggie wedges, okay? So what we're going to do to start with is we're going to go through a couple of little things we need to do before we start actually making the recipe. And the first thing, okay, is we need our ingredients, okay? So we've got a potato, just a standard potato. Move that back a little bit. We've got a parsnip in this case. We've got a sweet potato, nice big sweet potato there. We've got some beetroots, okay, and we've got some carrots. So we're probably not going to use them all in terms of the quantities of them. So we're just going to give you a bit of a trial for all of the different veggies. And we need our equipment ready, okay? So our equipment consists of a spoon, whether it's a tablespoon, that's fine, and teaspoon as well. A bowl. We need a little plastic container. Don't have to have that, but it's going to be useful. It's going to come into use in a minute. We need a chopping board. Now we need a knife. Now I've got two knives today. I've got a big one and I've got a smaller one. Okay, just because some of the vegetables we're going to use today, root veg, they're quite hard. All right. Two of the other bits of ingredients we need actually as well. We've got some herbs and we've got some oil. Okay, so we're going to use all of that today to make our veggie wedges. So this is the fifth one we've actually done today. So the reason why we're doing this is because some of the people in the previous videos, they've said about trying to get a bit more variety of the different vegetables. So if you think about chips that we already have made from potatoes, we're going to have 5 different vegetables here. You can also use turnips. You could use onions and leeks, but they might fall apart a little bit. So if you can have any sort of solid vegetable, that's going to be really, really good. Okay. Now I've washed all my vegetables prior to this. If you haven't done that, okay, go and do it now. And then I'll run through a few little safety bits. So we need to make sure our hair's tied back. We've got an apron on if you've got one. If you've got any jewellery, watches, rings, or anything like that. If you're in the kitchen and moving around, make sure you've got some shoes on that are tied up, okay? And we're going to have some sleeves. If you've got one, because we're going to be using the oven, it'd be useful to have like a tea towel as well or an oven glove, all right? So once all our vegetables are washed, okay, we're ready to go. So we've put the oven on to about 180. That's a medium to high temperature, okay? We don't want to put it on too low because it's going to take ages for the veg to cook. We don't want to put it on too high, otherwise they'll burn quite quickly. So something around 160, 180, okay, that'd be really good. They'll probably be in there for about 20, 25 minutes. If they're not cooked, okay, and you can tell just by putting one of your knives into the vegetable, and it should be quite soft in the middle. If they're still a bit hard when you do that, okay, you can take them up, put them in for another 5 minutes, and just see how you go. So we're going to start off with the easy vegetables first, and then we're going to work up to the harder ones. You might need an adult to help you out on some of the harder ones, because obviously potatoes, they are rock hard. All right, so we'll start off with a nice easy one. I'm going to start with a potato. All right, so I'm going to leave all the skins on, and the reason why we're going to leave all the skins on because it gives a little bit more fibre to the actual dish itself. We can take them off, but no need to. We've washed them; they're all good. So I'm going to bring the screen down, and then we're going to start with our recipe. Okay. So we've got our potato to start with. Now, we're going to use a smaller knife, and we're going to use a bridge and a claw method today. So we're going to use the bridge method to go through. Now, wedges, they're always going to be sort of triangular, okay, or have 3 sides. So we want to try and have everything of a similar size. If we get some things that are a bit smaller, it's going to take longer to cook. So you're going to have quite an even balance of different textures. So with our sorry about that, the dog. With our first recipe, first ingredient, we're going to have potato, and we're going to use the bridge method to go either side of the potato. Now, underneath my chopping board, I should say as well, I've got a little wet mat. That's just to stop it from moving. All right. If it wasn't there, if I'm going to put pressure onto the knife, then it might take the chopping board away a little bit. It potentially could slip. It would be quite dangerous. So, what we're going to do is have the thumb and index finger either side, and we're going to have the knife going through there, and we're going to use a sawing method, okay? Because these potatoes are quite big. If you had a smaller one, it'd be a bit easier. So we're going to go right through the middle, go back and forth until we come through. Now you might want to have a bigger knife for this, but we can just keep going and keep going and keep going until we've got it sliced. Not done just yet, so we can take it again, take it through the same bit, and it's done. Because this is a big potato, we're probably going to use half today. All right, so we'll put the other half to the side, and we can use our big knife, mix it up a little bit. So we want to try and cut this into 4, okay? So the way we're going to do that is, again, do the bridge method. So thumb and finger either side. We're going to come through the middle, get these 3 fingers out of the way. Because if they're there, we could potentially cut them. To get them either side, and bigger knife, it's going to be so much easier. We're going to have to maybe do 2. And it's through. Is it through? Done. So these are going to be big wedges. If you wanted to cut them in half there, you can do. All right. And now we're going to do it again in half. So we're going to bit of balance now. We're going to hold it on that corner. We're going to go through again and repeat the process until we've got 2 triangular sort of shaped 3-sided wedges. I'm just going to repeat that process. We've got 2 there. So now we've got 4 big wedges. All right. So they are going to go into our bowl. All right, they can stay there. Again, if they're a bit too big, okay, you could always cut them in half that way. Okay, but what we'll do, we'll cut them all to start with. If we need to make them smaller, then we can do. All right, so that's our potato. Next, we'll start off with a carrot. Now, this is a long carrot. Now, if you look at the size, we might need to cut these in half a little bit. All right. So we've got a little plastic container that's going to be used for a bit of food waste. All right. So we're going to use the claw method now. So claw, fingers curved over, thumb at the back, and we're just going to take the top of the carrot off, turn it around, and we're going to use it to take the bottom of the carrot. Now this is called topping and tailing. Can keep them on there, but if this was a little bit dirty, probably wouldn't be best to keep it on there. So we've got our little food waste bin done. So we're going to use a bridge now. And we're going to go finger and thumb either side. We're going to go straight through the middle. Now there's one different method that I call it the caterpillar, which is basically when we're cutting, we push down, bring up, and that will allow you to get through the food a little bit easier, especially if they're soft or a little bit more hard. And we're going to put these into quarters now. So, same method. See how it looks this way. Put it in till I hit the chopping board, and then just push down. Now, if this is too hard for you, okay, might be best to get an adult to do it. If you're starting with children, smaller children doing this, you can get the really small carrots, okay, and we can do it like that. we're just going to repeat the process. So now we're going to have about 4 for each half of the carrot. So we've got 4 for the top, and then 4 for the bottom. And you can see there's 3 sides again, 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so they can go into our bowl. Then now we look at the colours as well. We've got potato, we've got some orange in there. So now we're going to go on to our, we'll move on to the beetroot. The beetroot is not going to be as long as any of these vegetables. Okay, as you can see, beetroots are very, very short. So we want to try and cut these potentially in just 4 quarters. So we're not going to go down this way and do it like that. We're going to do it a little bit of a different way with the beetroots. Now, some are bigger than others. Okay, so I'll show you a big one and I'll show you a small one, what we can do. So the beetroot, take our small knife, we're going to top and tail it again. So bottom off. Where's that going to go? To our food container. And we can take the top off. So the top is basically where, that was where the root was. So that goes into the soil. And this is where all the green grows from it. Okay. So this is obviously still a little bit raw. So we don't really want this on there. Okay. So we're going to try and cut the top of it off as well as we can. Okay. I'm going to use the claw method. So we're going to go down. Again, that sawing motion. Everything rocking. And that's going to go into our container again. So now we've got 1 flat side, 2 flat sides, one's bigger than the other. So that's going to be a really good way for us to stabilize the next cut. Okay. So we have a big knife, we have a small knife. We're going to repeat the process. So we're going to do a bridge. Finger and thumb. We're going to go through until I hit the chopping board, and then I can push down. If it's not fully done, just go back to it. Take your time, there's no rush to do them. Now I've got 2 halves. Now you can eat beetroot raw. Beetroot's really nice grated up in salads. And we're just going to do these into quarters, okay? So we're going to go. Now, I suppose if we'd done these any smaller, these would probably cook a lot quicker than a lot of the other veg. So if we keep them that size, that will probably be all right. So if you think about the size of that to the beetroot, probably a little bit similar in terms of cooking time. So it's all trial and error, okay? Beetroot, go into there. Now we're going to show you the small one. The small one will be a little bit easier. You're going to top and tail it again to take the bottom off. Take the top off. Now that potentially could go in whole if you wanted to. What we're just going to do is cut it in half. So we've got something a little bit smaller, okay? In terms of the different sizes, what we definitely don't want is you don't want to have something that is really small, like that, to that, okay? Because that's going to cook maybe like 10 minutes max. That's going to take more on the half an hour side, 20 minutes side. So if you have them roughly the same size, that's going to be helpful. All right. So that's our beetroot done. So now you can start to see we've got lots of different colours in there again. We've got some really dark reddish purpley colour. We've got our carrots and we've got our potatoes. So we're going to move on to, just be careful with the beetroot because obviously it's going to stain. We'll move on to our parsnip. So we're probably going to use the whole parsnip, okay? little bit like what we did before. I'm going to top it. So I'm going to take the top off. Again, some of these are going to be hard, okay? So if you want to get an adult to do it, you can do that. Again, you can always buy smaller vegetables, so it's probably make it a little bit easier. And to separate this, we're going to cut it in half long ways. All right, so we're going to do that by doing the claw. So I'm struggling with the parsnip. The main thing is we don't want to be moving around too much, because that's when we're going to cause an accident. So if we can hold it nice and tight and our fingers are definitely out of the way, we're not going to cut ourselves. Okay. So the beetroot is a little bit similar. The parsnip is very similar to the carrot. Bridge. And then bridge again. Yeah. And this one we can probably, because this is thicker, we can probably do this into 8s. Okay. So we're going to put our flat side on the surface. And we're going to go down. Again, if you don't go all the way through it to start off with, just take your time, do it bit by bit. And then we'll go, actually, that's what we'll do. We'll do it into 6, okay? So we've got our center point, which is about here. So we want to try and get 3 out of this bit. So we're going to put our fingers on top, a little bit like we did with the core and apple, okay? We're going to go at an angle. Our knife's going to be at an angle. So that's going to be flat, angle, and straight, okay? We're going to go into the middle. That. And we can repeat. So now we've got 3 nice bits of parsnip. You could do quarters, but like I said, we want to try and make everything a little bit similar in size. They might be a little bit too small if we done them in quarters. There you go. So the really last thing we've got is our sweet potato. Now this is going to be the hardest one, okay? So I would suggest we start off with the adult doing this, okay? And for the adult, same principle. Try and find somewhere flat where it's not going to be moving around. If we have it on an edge where it can move, it's going to make it more difficult. So you can see not on every sweet potato, but there's going to be a natural flat bit there on this one in particular. So that one is going to make it a little bit sturdier. So we're going to go halfway through, okay? And we can just rock it. So this is tough. So I'm going to use our small knife. I'm going to see if I can just loosen it a little bit. And it's slowly coming through. Right, it break a little bit, so we're there. Okay. So again, like the potato, we're going to use half. So with this bit, we can take that tip off. A little bit manky. And we're going to basically repeat the process like we did with the parsnips. Okay. So big side flat on the chopping board. And we're going to do our bridge, and we're going to go straight down the middle. Now this one's going to be a little bit easier than getting through the centre of it, because we've got a natural way for it to balance. Okay, so we've got 2 halves. And it's probably going to be a bit too difficult to do this into thirds. So we're going to do this into quarters. So we're going to have 8 bits. All right. So we're going to go straight down. And again, straight down. So these are really big chunks. If you look at the size, that's probably half the size. Parsnip's half the size of sweet potato. So we can probably do these again. So support it, come through the middle. So you see what I do? I'm going to go from this angle. So I go all the way down. So them to one side a minute. I'll go all the way down. And then once it's on the chopping board, the point of the knife, I'm supporting the vegetable and I'm just pushing my push down. So when people chop at speed, that's the movement that I use. I go like that. So I'm just pushing that bit down. When my fingers are out of the way, I know I'm not going to cut myself. They're not all going to be perfect, the same size, but they're good enough. Okay, so we've got loads and loads of veg in there now. So I'm just going to move everything to one side. We don't need the chopping board anymore, unless you wanted to chop some more stuff up. We don't need that. A little bit of club so we can mark everything down. So we've got quite a lot of stuff in there. If you wanted to go through it and you could make it smaller, some of the bits you wanted to make smaller, you might think that there's a big bit in there, make that smaller or whatever, you can do that. If you just want to take out what you don't need, you can always put that in the fridge and save it for the next day. It might only be you eating it. Okay. So I'm probably not going to eat all this for myself. So I'd probably take out some carrot, take out a few more bits of parsnip. So remember we were talking about handfuls in the other videos. A handful is what you can hold in the palm of your hand. So for me, that whole beetroot would probably be the whole of the beetroot. Would probably be a portion for me, or 3 bits. So I can take 1 bit out. Keep 3 bits in. Sweet potato. It's probably a bit too big for me. Okay, so I can maybe even take 2 bits out of that. 4 bits small. Parsnip, we've got quite a lot of parsnip in here. So for me, again, that's overfilling my hand, so I can probably take a few bits out of there. Yeah? And then potato, half a potato. Maybe have 3. And then carrot, I quite like carrot, so I'll keep that in there. So the rest of the stuff that I haven't used, again, put that in a bowl, put that in the fridge, and use it the next day. If you wanted to cook it all together, you could obviously keep it in the fridge, but you're not going to get, unless you put it back in the oven, you're not going to get that sort of crispiness to it. So what we need now is our oil, got it here, spoon, and we've got our herbs. Okay, we're going to use Italian herbs. So that's got garlic, it's got some sage, got some tomato bits in there as well, so that's going to be quite nice to sort of go around. So I'd recommend, if you do, get these oil pourers rather than pouring it out, especially if you're a child, then you can manage it a little bit easier. So for this whole lot, we're probably going to use, maybe we're going to start off with 1 tablespoon. Okay, so we're going to go oil on the spoon. We're going to add that in. Now we're going to use the spoon just to mix everything around. You want the oil to make sure everything is coated in a little bit of oil. We don't want it like oil just loaded at the bottom. not too much. And also, oil's quite energy dense. You could always use a little bit of oil, maybe a little lemon juice, something like that. If that wasn't enough, I could then add more. Okay, but I think, to me, I'm looking at a lot of this veg, and a lot of it is coated with oil now. I haven't got any standing oil at the bottom, so I think that's fine. So what you can do, you can add your herbs now. Now, I'm using this, as I said. You could use rosemary, you could use sage, you could use mixed herbs, just some dried mixed herbs. It's up to you. If you didn't want to do herbs, you can maybe put some paprika on there, or you could put some just salt, pepper, maybe some chili flakes. It's up to you. I'm not going to be using salt because salt's already in this mix. Okay, so I'm probably going to start off with half a tablespoon. Okay, so you can see all the different types. So there's a little bit of garlic. All the green stuff is the mixed herbs, and a little bit of red in there. That's from the dried tomato. So give that a mix. Remember, add a little bit at a time. You can always add, but you can't remove generally in recipes. So if you add too much, whether it's salt, okay, once it's added, you won't be able to take it out. So what you're looking for is everything not to be fully coated, but just have some of the mix on it. All right. Now I'm going to add a little bit more, just a touch. So you can start to see my bowl, like lots of the veg has got, majority of the sides have got some form of seasoning on it. Okay, so that's what you're sort of looking for. Now, the reason why I add the oil first is you want to coat everything in the oil, and then all the herbs will stick to the oil. So, once that's done, I'm going to put those on a baking tray, which I've got here. I've got all my veg on it at the moment, so I'm just going to remove all that. I've got my baking tray with some tin foil on it. Then all I'm going to do is just spread them over, get any excess oil out. Make sure they're all separated, they're not on top of each other, because then some of them won't crisp up. And once that's done, okay, I want to put them in the oven. Oven for about 20 to 25 minutes on 180, okay? If they haven't started to crisp up around the edges, and you put your knife in them and they're still a little bit hard, take them out, put them back in, okay? Maybe do it on 5-minute intervals. So check after 5 minutes. What you don't want to do is put them in there for another long amount of time and then they're all burnt. So again, just make sure they're all separated. They've all got a nice bit of room. And the oil's going to make them not stick to the tin foil. You don't have to have tin foil, just we add some left over. So I'm going to put them in the oven now. And that's it. That's your veggie wedges done. So if you are making them, guys, do let us know how you found it. Let us know if you've used any other vegetables as well, because there's quite a few different things that you can use out there in root vegetables. So if we're looking at the colours, we're trying to eat a rainbow. So we've got some beige on there, we've got some red, we've got some orange. So it's a good mixture of different nutrients from a lot of the vegetables. If you are a family in the Bexley or Greenwich area, if you are a co-op member as well, you can back us, and you can, every time you buy stuff in the co-op, it gives us money to pay for these programs and the initiatives. That's really good. Let us know. We're on social media, we're on Twitter, we're on Instagram. Anything else you want help with, just let us know. And speak to you soon. Cheers. Bye.